And what these immature men don't get is we are no longer asking if men will choose us. What we're asking ourselves is, do I want a relationship at all? And if I do I want the one he's offering me? Welcome to You Have the Power, the road to truth, freedom, and real connection. If you've ever wondered why you keep attracting emotionally unavailable men, questioned your own instincts, or found yourself staying quiet just to keep the peace, you are in the right place. I'm Darla Ridilla, a voice and podcast launch mentor and creator of the Magnetic Connections Pathway. This podcast isn't about fixing yourself. It's about finding your voice. Together, we'll explore what it means to lead yourself through presence, agency, and empowerment, breaking old relationship patterns, building standards with a backbone, and creating relationships rooted in emotional willingness, starting with your relationship with yourself. Because the moment you stop negotiating with yourself and start honoring what you already know, that is where your power begins. Let's get started. Last week, I talked about how I am just really done accommodating men. And yes, I am angry and I'm really turned off right now by men. And I'm in a position in this moment where I'm really not interested in getting involved in a relationship. Since I recorded that episode a couple weeks ago, I have discovered that I'm making less eye contact with men. I'm less interested in engaging in conversation. And it's just because right now I'm internalizing everything and I'm really kind of thinking through what I want my present and my future to look like. And it's not that I'm 100% against having a relationship. If a man who is emotionally willing and emotionally available, emotionally mature showed up, he may have a chance, but I'm not holding out that that's going to happen. It's less of a when and more of an if for me. But as I continue to really think about what happened, how it affected my opinion moving forward in relationships, I realized that there's something bigger going on. A lot of women are opting out of relationships. We are saying that we're done with men and that we're not interested anymore. But what it really boils down to deep inside is that we're done abandoning ourselves just for the sake of saying we're with someone. And that's what I did for most of my life. Up till about 2 years ago, while I did learn a lot and I've been on a healing journey for quite a while, I didn't really fully stop doing it until 2 years ago. I realized during and after my last breakup that I am simply not willing to abandon myself and who I am just to be chosen by someone. That it's more important that I choose me first. And if someone else decides they want to get to know me and have me part of their life, they have to accept me as I am. And I'm not talking about, not doing personal growth. What I'm talking about is not expecting me to give up the things that I enjoy, not expecting me to accommodate them, to do all of the work, to carry the load of the emotional labor. I can no longer do that, and I won't. And for some of you, you've also reached that point. Some of you ladies out there, you've reached the point where you're like, yeah, she's right. Absolutely. I am done too. Or maybe you're not quite there yet, but you're starting to know that you're not happy in whatever relationship you're in. You've just gone through a breakup, or maybe you're actually in a relationship or a marriage, and something just isn't right. And you feel unfulfilled. For those who really don't know what self-abandonment looks like, let's talk about that a little bit. Sometimes it's subtle and sometimes it's not. I think most instances of self-abandonment happen one small piece at a time, and we don't even realize it. It's how I used to describe narcissistic abuse. I used to say it's like water eroding a rock. If you look at it daily, you don't notice that the rock is being chipped away one little molecule or chip at a time. But if you go back to that river in 10 years and look at that same rock, you will see a significant change in its size. And that is how self-abandonment works as well. It's in the little things that we do over and over again. It's when we rearrange our life for someone else. Sometimes it's as simple as giving up something we enjoy. Maybe it's reading a book before bed. Maybe you love going out with your girlfriends and you just don't do that anymore. You don't even call them. Those hobbies that you enjoy, those quiet moments that you like. Anything that you give up in hopes that someone else will choose you or accept you is just a bad move. Sometimes it's more dramatic. You actually change your appearance. You give up important things in your life. Maybe you were getting a degree. Maybe it was a job you really loved. Maybe it was living in a certain location. And in my case, it was my music. And sometimes it's not as dramatic. It's in the little things. When we say something's okay with us when it's not. When we agree to something we don't want to agree to. When we don't ask for what we want or what we need because we're afraid if we do, he'll reject us. He'll admonish us. He'll punish us. He'll retaliate. And what happens is as we continue to abandon ourselves, we are so focused on keeping the other person happy. We want him to be happy, and we don't even realize that we are unhappy, that we aren't happy at all. When I referred to my music, I gave up singing in a band over and over again for years. Whether I decided it myself, I'm kind of an all in or all out kind of person, and I didn't have any sense of balance. And I also was afraid if I didn't spend all my time with someone who I was dating or in a relationship with, that they would tire of me or they would get distracted by another woman and leave me. But what more commonly happened is there was a subtle influence. But if you get involved in a band, we won't have time for each other. One of the narcissists, the last one that I was with, blatantly said when I wanted to start singing again, but I want to travel once a month. How are we going to do that if you're in a band? And I was so ridiculously involved with him and more concerned about keeping him that I listened to his reasoning, which wasn't reasonable at all. First of all, we could have done both. We only traveled once a month. I could have come into a band saying, once a month, I need a weekend. We could have gigged 3 weeks out of the month. And if that didn't work, I should have chosen myself because I could have traveled on my own terms. But I let him influence me. And I did it again and again and again, where a man was like, but if you're doing this, where do I fit in? But that wasn't the question I should have been asking. I should have been asking him, how do you fit into my life? Because this is what I want. Sometimes self-abandonment is being told what to do and we comply. But sometimes we sabotage it ourselves. We do it without even being asked because our fear of rejection, of being left, of not being wanted is louder than our fear of losing ourselves. Over the years when I was in relationships, I gave up so much for men. I did things I shouldn't have as a parent to a daughter. I stayed in my first marriage too long because I felt it was the right thing to do. But I was miserable. Not because he was a bad person, because he wasn't. But he was no longer the right person for me. I stayed in abusive situations because I allowed myself to be brainwashed to think I deserved it. And that came from my childhood programming. I didn't love myself enough to be okay with being by myself. And when I gave up my music, the irony is I gave up my voice, not just my speaking voice, but my singing voice. And today, this podcast and pursuing that singing again is all about my voice, just in different forms. And ladies, I'm going to ask you, how many of you have put something on a shelf? You've set it aside, you've given it up, you've abandoned it because a man expected you to, or you felt like if you didn't, he would leave you. He wouldn't value you. He would see you as too much, that your needs weren't important. How many of you have done that? I bet you every single one of you have. How many of you have said, this thing in my life is too big to make room for this relationship as well. So I'm going to choose the relationship over my own needs. In addition to giving up music, I also self-abandoned during my marriage. I was married to a narcissist who had convinced me that he knew better. And he would tell me how to dress, what I could and couldn't say. He even told me what colors I should wear. One day I had decided to cut my hair. It was right after we got married. And I didn't tell him that I was going to do it. I didn't need to. I'm a grown ass woman and I can make my own choices. I was appalled when I got home, the shocked look on his face, the definite judgment. And he said to me, I'm not telling you what to do, but when your hair isn't long, I'm not attracted to you. What an awful thing to say. But it was a form of gaslighting. It was a form of manipulation and control. When we are with someone, we're not supposed to like them based on their outside appearance. We are supposed to connect to who they are inside, their character. But narcissists don't think that way. It's all about control. And I think what it was really about is I made a decision without consulting him. And it wasn't his decision to make, but that still pissed him off. He also told me that I look good in black and I should wear that. I shouldn't wear pastels or bright colors, which is what I preferred. So I stopped wearing the colors that I liked. I became everything he wanted me to be, or he said he did. But then he still asked me for a divorce. I totally sacrificed who I was to become something of his making. But it didn't get me anywhere, did it? He still abandoned me because he didn't like me for who I was. He liked me for what he could get from me. And he got off on controlling me and manipulating me. And even if you are not with a narcissist, there are different levels of what control, manipulation, and self abandonment can look like. And even on a lower level, it is not okay for you to do it. And in that moment, I made a choice. I didn't think I had a choice. But now looking back, I realize I chose to accommodate him. I chose to become the person he said he wanted me to be. And I chose to not be me. What I didn't understand is that no matter what I did or said, it was never going to be enough because he didn't respect me. When I did finally leave, I didn't recognize myself. I would look in the mirror and say, who is this woman? On the outside and on the inside. It actually became so awful that I almost took my life in 2013 because I had self-abandoned to the point that I was a shell. So self-abandonment can have some really serious consequences. They don't always, but for me, it did. And when I left him, I had to kind of rebuild who I was. I had to take the fragmented pieces of what was left of me. Some of those pieces I decided not to put back together because they were things I didn't need anymore. And that was part of the personal growth. But there were the other things of what do I enjoy doing? That summer I was going through the divorce, I summited 2 14ers in Colorado, one of them by myself. And I did that, first of all, to push myself physically so I could push myself mentally, but it was about exploring what I wanted to do. The first thing I did when we got separated is I went out the very next day and I cut my hair. Unfortunately for me, I was very trauma bonded and didn't know it and had dinner with him, even though we had just gotten separated. He made a comment about, did you do this to get back at me? Like it had nothing to do with him. I started using my maiden name, even though legally we weren't divorced yet. But in my personal world, I went back to my maiden name because I wanted to embrace my identity all over again. Who is it that I am? And since that divorce, even though I've been married one more time, I've always kept my maiden name because I never wanted to lose that sense of who I am. I decided that I was going to speak out and that I was going to tell the truth about what he did. Even in those early stages, I was starting to tell the people that were closest to me, even though a lot of them didn't believe me. And while I didn't fully speak out until a couple of years ago, I did on and off throughout the years. But what really finally empowered me to speak my truth and to stop self-abandoning was the realization that as long as I don't speak of it, I'm hiding. I'm not honoring the woman that went through that. As women, we've been trained to do what we're told, but we have to break these old molds. We have to reject this societal conditioning. And we have to stop thinking inside of our head, if I accommodate him enough, if I do what he wants, if I'm patient, if I help him, if I support him, if I carry the emotional weight of this relationship, he'll pick me, he'll choose me. And when we say these things and we act on them, we don't realize that we're choosing him instead of ourselves. But often he isn't choosing us. Because any man who expects you to self abandon is not a healthy person for you, no matter how much you love him and no matter how much you care for him. It's not an even keeled relationship and it's not a healthy one. A man who's emotionally willing would never ask you to abandon yourself. In fact, he would lose respect for you if you did. For those women who do choose to be in a relationship, to be out in the dating world, we have to remember we are the prize. And if a man wants to be in our life, he's got to show us that he can earn it. He's got to show us how he is going to honor us. He's got to show us how he's not going to ask us to self abandon. A healthy relationship is when two people can fully be themselves and be fully committed in the relationship as well. I've gotten some comments on my channels, and mostly men, of course, even some women, which was really disappointing. But a lot of women are still wrapped up in the old ways and the patriarchy and the conditioning and the brainwashing. It's really sad to me that they haven't woke up yet. And they'll say things like, well, what about till death do us part in sickness and in health? Yes, when I was married, I took those vows really seriously. That vow, that commitment, doesn't mean I'm required to stay if that relationship is abusive, if it no longer serves me, if I'm carrying the emotional weight of it, and it's out of alignment with who I am. My first husband, I outgrew him. I got married too young. I changed, he didn't. My second husband, extremely abusive. And my third, he loved me more than he loved himself. But that still is a bad thing because he still abandoned me in the end because he couldn't do the right thing. He loved me, but in an unhealthy way. And each time I took those vows, I really did want it to be forever. And I really worked at it. But also, all three times, I realized that no matter how much I worked at it, it wasn't going to work because I wasn't getting the same amount of work, input, and commitment from the other person. I was no longer willing to sacrifice my peace, to give up the things that I enjoyed, to accommodate a man who didn't want to work on himself but expected me to stick around and deal with his either abusive behavior or his neglect. I couldn't do that. A lot of the men just say the same fucking things all the time. They don't understand that all these comments, we really don't care. These stupid things about, oh, you're too old, or no man will want you, I don't want you. You don't get it, do you? It's not about you wanting me. It's not about you choosing me, because I don't choose you. I've decided to choose myself. I'm not interested in a man choosing me. So those nasty comments have no sting because I've already decided I don't really want a man in my life. And if I do, it's not about him choosing me at all. It's about me deciding if I even want him in my life and me deciding if he's in alignment. And if a man doesn't choose me, so what? I don't need that to feel good about myself. And quite frankly, whether a man chooses me or not has nothing to do with my value. I have value just because I exist. And I have a wonderful life. And I'm just really not willing to sacrifice that for somebody else's chaos and bullshit. And what these immature men don't get is we are no longer asking if men will choose us. We are no longer seeking it. What we're asking ourselves is, do I want a relationship at all? And if I do I want the one he's offering me? There are so many ridiculous reactions to women as we continue to say, we don't need you. I've heard it all. Well, who's going to fight the wars? Who's going to protect you? Okay, protect me from who? We have a bunch of men children running around, little boys in men's bodies, and they sure as hell ain't protecting us emotionally or physically. We're on our own, and we'll deal. Because if that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do. And there's nothing wrong with wanting a man. There's nothing wrong with wanting love, relationship, partnership. Where it crosses the line is when we want it so bad that we are willing to sacrifice ourselves to get it. And as our social dynamics are changing, women are changing at a rapid rate, but men haven't really changed all that much. And in fact, they're digging in their heels. And the misogyny and the patriarchy continues. And they keep trying to impose old rules on us that we no longer follow. We are no longer going to be told that we're too loud, we're too opinionated, we're too emotional, we want too much. Our value is based on whether or not a man is in our life. Those don't apply to us anymore because we have chosen ourselves, which means we'll be as loud as we want. We'll say what we damn well please. And we may choose ourselves over even being in a relationship. And there's not anything you can do about it. And you don't have to like it. But maybe if you sat up and paid attention, you'd realize that there's actually a really good reason for all of this shift. It's because our standards are high and getting higher every day. And our independence has been this wonderful gift that we're just not going to give up. And I'm completely okay with the reality that I may never be in a relationship again. Companionship is nice. Partnership is nice. Having someone to talk to in the evening is nice. But what isn't okay with me is being miserable and slowly chipping away at who I am to get it. So the uncertainty of whether or not I'll ever be in a relationship is far less of a problem for me than having all of this peace. And as women, I think we really get tested and really get clear with ourselves about what our standards are and whether or not we're going to hold them when we are faced with a situation where we really like someone, care for them, or love them. They are asking us to self-abandon. They aren't emotionally available. And we have to walk away and say goodbye. And I know how hard that is because 2 years ago, I had to do it. I had to walk away from a relationship with a man I was madly in love with and thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. But when I realized that the future that I was going to have with him wasn't what I wanted, I had to end it. That's what's called standards with a backbone. It didn't mean it didn't hurt. And it took me a really long time to get over that, but it was worth it. Because the courage that I had that night to leave immediately and not take him back and give him a second chance meant that I had the courage to face being alone for a while, which actually didn't take courage at all. Eventually, it actually was a preferred way of living. Women choosing ourselves and having a voice is so much bigger than not having romantic relationships. This is about a new dawn and a new beginning for us. And while we're kind of in the stage where we are at least I am, feeling frustrated, can't understand why men can't get on board and understand why we feel this way and try to work on themselves too and adjust and adapt and accept that we actually should never have had to endure what we did all of these centuries, that what we are living now, our mothers and our grandmothers and our great grandmothers should have had. And they never should have been under a man's thumb just to survive. We don't have to be in survival mode anymore because we are living and we're thriving. And the truth is we don't need men anymore. And that's not a bitter statement. That's just a fact. And we especially don't need the men who refuse to grow up. We don't need the ones that bring chaos, and we don't need the ones that are emotionally unavailable. We can want a man who is healthy and emotionally willing. We can even want that and still choose to be single. What is most important is, what is it you want in your life? What is it that you are no longer willing to give up for anyone? How do you envision your life with or without a man? And if that man shows up, how does he fit into that picture? How does he add, not take away? And how can you strive every single day to stop chipping away at who you are? How can you stop self-abandoning? Whether that's in your relationships, with your family, friends, work, wherever that is. How can you be true to yourself and authentic in every moment and let the chips fall where they may? And what are you no longer willing to give up just to be in a relationship? You have the power. And now it's time to act like it. Thank you for listening to You Have the Power, the road to truth, freedom, and real connection. Is something stirred in you today? Don't talk yourself out of it. That is how women lose themselves. Not all at once, just one quiet compromise at a time. If the episode challenged you, like it, share it, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. The life you want isn't waiting for you to be more confident. It's waiting for you to stop abandoning what you already know. Your voice has been there all along. Now it's time to trust it.